Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Tanks. Now today I'm going to try and make this a quick video, however I always say they're going to be quick videos and then they end up turning out to be about half an hour. But I'm going to be giving you guys my recommendations for what tanks you should play in ranked. Obviously these are my opinion, first things first, so if you really strongly disagree with something then that's your opinion, you play what you want. It's ranked at the end of the day. I don't really think there are any tier 10s that are absolutely trash beyond any possible measurable comparison that should not be played in ranked at all. If it's your favourite tank and you play best in it, you play it. Does not bother me. But yeah, I'm just going to be trying to give a general overview of what I think are the best tanks to play and everything like that. And like I said, I'm going to try and keep it quick. Now, I'm going to be doing this by putting the tanks into 3 classes, well 4 technically, but I'm only going to be mentioning 3 classes. At the very top, the best tanks we're going to have top of the class. This is where I've picked one tank from each of the classes. I'm not including artillery, by the way. If you want to play arty, play arty. I'm not going to mention arty at all. They're decent in ranked, but they're arty. But yeah, top of the class, where I'm going to pick one tank from each class, and that is what I think the best tank for that class is going to be. Then I have the best picks, which I think are the best tanks to be playing. This is going to be a couple from each class. Then I have decent picks, which is tanks that I think, yeah, they're alright. If you don't have any tanks from the best picks class, they're pretty decent. They can work, but they fall down in a couple of areas. And then the final class, which is trash class, I'm not even going to be mentioning. So if I don't mention a tank in this video, consider it that I'm putting it in the bottom class that I would not recommend to play. However, just because I would not recommend to play it, if it's the tank that you play the absolute best in at tier 10, then play it. Because you're better playing a tank that you know well, that you play really well in, than trying to adapt yourself to a new tank that you don't play so well in, just because some stupid man on the internet said that it was trash. Simple. Now, I will say, I don't know what the meta is yet. This is something that always happens in ranked. You get a very strong meta one way or another. It could be an all-in brawl where there's a lot of HE fired. It's all lots of heavy tanks firing in, you know, HE, hull down, all of this, all of that. In which case, there'll be one way of playing, easier. Or it might be more of a sniping match, a lot more sitting back, a lot more waiting for an enemy team to push in and doing damage as they push in, or trying to steal kills at the end of the game. It's probably going to go one way or the other. It might land somewhere in the middle. But obviously, depending on what it does, depends on how effective some of these vehicles will be. And before we get into the list, first thing we need to make sure is that we have no reward vehicles in this. Because obviously, you cannot pick reward vehicles in ranked anymore. This also includes the 215B 183, the Foch 155, everything like that as well. So you see all of these vehicles here, press that button and that's pretty much what you can pick. So we'll move on to the classes. Now, first one, like I said, tippy top, best picks, I think, top of the class. I will try and put the timestamps of the classes in the description, as long as Future Max remembers. Future Max, remember. So, starting off with the light tanks, EBR. Not going to explain it. It is just the best light tank to play in ranked. Yes, people have problems with it. Yes, everybody hates it. But at the end of the day, if you want to play well in ranked, play it. It completely trashes on other light tanks. It's got good combat capability. Obviously, it can spot on open maps so easily. And at the end of the game, you can just rush in and get 3,000-4,000 spotting damage on some maps, or go in and do 2k damage. It's just, yeah, it's the EBR. You probably knew this was going to be the case. Medium tanks, STB1. Arguably one of the best medium tanks in the game at the moment. It's a lot of you might be thinking, well, why have you not picked the 140 or the 430 here? And the main reason for that is this thing's flexibility across all maps because of the gun depression it has. Something like Sand River or maybe even Prokhorovka in the 140 or the 430, there are positions you struggle in. Obviously not so much with the 140 since the gun depression buffs, but there are positions that you're going to struggle in. STB does not struggle. If you can't get the gun depression in the STB, you're not going to have the gun depression. Also, combine that with the fact that it's got amazing DPM, decent accuracy, real good aim time, and the rest of the tank, just as a package, is all very, very nice. I think this is probably going to be the best medium tank to play in ranked, hands down. Heavy tanks, I've gone with the 277. Best of the class, just because it's quick. You can adapt to situations. If you push onto one flank and you need to push back to your base, or you need to push through, 277 is obviously amazing. It's really nice and quick. It's got a really good 130mm gun. Still fires half decent HE, and I'll come on to that when I get to a more HE firing tank. But yeah, you need something that's decent with HE. But at the same time, it's still got a quick rate of fire. You're not gonna struggle. It's got good heat rounds, 340 pen heat rounds. It's just all round a very, very, very strong tank, and it would be my #1 pick for heavy tanks. Now, tank destroyers, I'm already breaking my rule because I've gone with 2, and this is linking back to, like I said, it depends on what the meta is. First one, T110E3. Incredibly strong tank, one of arguably the best armoured tanks in the game. If it's a more brawly meta, all-in meta, E3 is incredibly good. You use your armour. It's quite immune to HE rounds. If it all of a sudden becomes a very HE meta, then you start using a spool liner. Would be my recommendation, like spool liner, take the optics off, something like that. Obviously, very, very nice APCR rounds, 395mm a pen, just straight through pretty much anything. Really good HE rounds as well, tier 10 HE, tank destroyer HE. You do 400 damage a shot with a well-aimed HE shell, and that's no issue if things are hold down. Like if you start getting super conquerors hold down, stuff like that, E3 with HE, they do not last that long at all. So that's definitely one of my picks. My other pick is actually one of 2 non-arty tier 10s that I currently don't have in my garage, and that is the STRV. I'm not going to pull it up because I pulled it up a minute ago, got the updating vehicles bug, and meant that I had to re-record about 10 minutes of footage, which was annoying to say the least. But the STRV, just because you can, if it's more of the campy meta that I was talking about, just because obviously it's an STRV. You can sit at the back of the map and you can just ruin absolutely everyone. Accurate, DPM, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So that was top of the class. Let's move on to my best picks. Now, best picks. Starting off with the light tanks. Now, there are 2 light tanks that I would put in this class, and that is the T100 LT. It used to be the king of light tanks until the EVR showed up. Decent gun, decent combat capabilities. Also stealthy as all hell, really good like view range and stealthiness combination. So you can actually do a lot of spotting in this tank, but then when you have to fall back on it, the gun is pretty good. So yeah, definitely one of my top recommendations for light tanks. The other one, AMX-13105. The baby bat chat, basically. The auto loader, pretty much. You can just, as long as you know how to use the auto loaders, this is definitely a tank that I would recommend. If you're not so hot on your autoloaders, play the T100. If you're good with autoloaders, play this thing. It's having that 3-shell autoloader, the decent reload on said 3-shell autoloader, being able to burst damage, go in, do what is it? I can't even think what the damage is. Oh, 1200-ish, just below 1200, and then pull back, reload, go in, do the same again. You're definitely going to be alright with this thing. I absolutely love this thing. I think it's slightly underrated, if anything. So a very, very good tank and one of my best picks for lights. Now, onto the medium tanks, and this actually is quite a long list when it comes to the medium tanks, but that is because I'm a medium player. So if you don't like medium tanks, you're probably not going to agree with this list quite so much. Oh, also, by the way, if you disagree with any of these picks, love any of these picks, anything like that, let me know in the comments. I read all of the comments. I will probably reply to most of the comments. If you've got any questions, if you want to ask why some tanks are where they are, why some tanks aren't where they are, why anything, then just comment, let me know. So, best picks for medium tanks, 430U. I don't think I really need to explain it. Decent mobility, very good armor from the front. The gun is very good, and for a medium tank is quite good at firing HE. This is kind of set up how I would play it in ranked. Lots of HE, lots of heat, obviously really good heat rounds and everything. It's just a all-round very good tank. I'm not even going to go into too much what this tank is about. You know what it is. It's just a good all-round tank. And speaking of good all-round tanks, Object 140. Again, 430U, but a little bit lighter. More DPM, better accuracy, better aim time, worse armor, better gun depression. Arguably because it's got the lower alpha, not quite as good in some situations, but because it and it hasn't got the HE rounds because it's only 100mm gun, but it's a 140. It's as long as you play it decently, you're gonna have a good game. It's not really gonna matter. Next best pick, Leopard 1. This thing since the changes has just become an absolute beast. Sniper, like mine's at 0.25 dispersion. Like what the hell do you want? Really good DPM still. The gun itself, amazing platform, and obviously it's a quick tank that can relocate. You do not want to play this on the front lines, so if it does evolve into a very brawly meta, this might not be quite such a good pick. But because it is so fast and because you can snipe from such long ranges, it's a tank that if you can relocate and you can get into positions to make it work, which is why it's in one of my best picks. Next one. Where are you? I've lost it. There it is. TVP. Need to play it right. However, played right can be an absolute beast. Similar to the 13105 in the fact that you can get into a situation, do 1200 damage, be like, I don't want to be here anymore, get out, come back, do 1200 damage again, get out. You know, like, it's a TVP. That burst damage and the capabilities of getting out. Something that's also good with the TVP, obviously in ranked, everything is about XP, and the best thing for XP is kills. And the TVP is great for mopping up kills, because if you've got two guys on 600 health, boom, TVP's got 2 kills within 5 seconds. Simple as that. It's so good for ranked just for that, and obviously, generally, it is a very, very good tank. Similar on those lines, Progetto, even since the nerf, still a very good tank. Ability to mop up kills, yes, you need somewhere to go to kind of hide to be able to reload. But the accuracy, the mobility, again, the fact that you can mop up kills quite easily, very, very good tank for ranked. Next one, CS63. This has evolved and kind of changed the entire meta of the game, especially in Clan Wars and everything a bit, because of how fast it is and everything like that. I'm not sure if EBRs are going to be in the meta, or CS63s are kind of going to be more the light tanks, because when they get somewhere they're a lot more combat capable. But I would definitely say this thing is a good tank to pick. Like I said, it's one of the best ways to counter light tanks because it is so fast. And then when you get there, yes, you have the 2 seconds of switching out of the speed mode into your damage dealing mode, but then it's as good as any other tier 10 medium. So definitely would recommend. Good pick on most maps. Obviously, you may struggle a little bit on like Himmels and Entsk and things like that if that's the case, but still, all in all, pretty good pick. And then, last but not least, for my best picks for my medium tanks, Batchat. I'm not going to explain the Batchat, it's just a Batchat. If you play it well, it can be one of the best tanks in the game. Played horribly, one of the worst tanks in the game. This is one, for me, one of the best picks because I can play it fairly decently. I think for a lot of players it's very easy because even if you're not that great, you can rush in, you can put a full clip in, get a kill maybe, and then you die, but you've done 1800 damage, 1500 damage if you miss a shot, and got a kill, and that's usually enough to hold a chevron as long as your team, to gain a chevron as long as your team wins, or if your team loses really hard, it's enough to maintain a chevron. But Batchat, just an all-round good tank. You can spot in it if you want to as well. Right, that's enough of the medium tanks. Now on to my best picks for heavy tanks. Starting off with the S-Conk. Obviously, Lidl Chieftain, not that great in comparison to the Chieftain, but you can't play the Chieftain. So the S-Conk is still pretty good. Only thing that lets it down, literally the only thing that lets it down, is its speed. Other than that, all-round, incredibly solid tank. Well, you could say maybe the lower plate as well, but incredibly good tank. Get it hold down, get it on a ridge, get the gun firing. You can use DPM, accuracy, everything like that. Just absolutely Destroy people, definitely going to be one of my main picks, and when I fancy playing heavy tank, Super Conk will be where I go. Next one, where are we? 60 TP. This is more if it evolves into kind of that HE meta. Obviously, the 60 TP, very good HE rounds, 152mm gun on a turreted platform that's not too slow, has half decent armor. Can definitely work. People are scared of pushing in against this thing because obviously it has that big old punch with the gun, and if you have a little bit of support that can support you whilst you're reloading, definitely a good pick. Next we have the E100. Ooh, interesting pick, Max. Obviously this thing could be played in two ways since it's being kind of buffed. The 128mm gun, really good. Good DPM, good accuracy. Not good accuracy, but decent aim time. In a brawl, very good. You can just trade with people, 530 for 400 or whatever. Say you're trading with a Super Conqueror. And obviously it's got the health to match. Since it's buffed, the armor is actually half decent. Even the turret played properly against premium rounds these days is actually pretty good. Obviously the issue with the U100 is you have to face back to your enemies when you want to fire. And if it's like tier 10 tank destroyers, they are going to damage you. Or you can obviously play, if you want to, with the 15cm gun and then insert 60 TP here. What I said about that. Similar kind of tank. And last but not least, on my best picks, and this is probably one that people weren't expecting, Cranvo. Similar-ish story to the STB one. It's the flexibility it has with the 12 degrees of gun depression and the good turret armor on most maps. Obviously, the gun is also very good. 20-second reload on 3 shots doing 440 alpha. Bloody lovely tank. Pretty quick. You can get around the map quite quickly. This thing may struggle a little bit more if it's incredibly... If the meta is incredibly swung towards, you know, all in brawls, HE, everything like that. However, I still think this thing can do well. And this is probably one of the things that surprised myself the most when I came into, like, thinking about what tanks are going to be worth this video. I was like, I don't play this thing enough. This is definitely a tank that can be played very well. And I think, not even necessarily in the right situations, but in most situations, you can definitely have a good game in. Now, that is the heavy tanks. Onto the tank destroyers. First things first, Grill 15. This is more reliant probably on it being more of a snipey meta. However, even if it's not, the mobility of the grill, the accuracy, the punchiness of the gun, you can have perfectly good games, even if it's not. Obviously, 15cm, you can fire HE if you need to. Just an all-round very good tank destroyer. The other best pick I would say for tank destroyers is E4. This is probably, a lot of people are thinking, huh? E4? Is he right in the head? The E4 is not a great tank. No, the E4 is not a great tank. However, again, if it ends up being a very HE meta, very close quarters meta, the E4 with its turret and the 155mm gun, capability of firing HE or 395 APCR, same as the E3, is very good. And obviously, unlike the E3, you do have a turret, so you can go around corners a lot easier. You don't have to expose your whole tank, everything like that. Obviously, it does struggle with the fact it doesn't have much armor, but I still think the E4 can be very good. And I think if you overlook it or underestimate it, you're going to get slapped in the face by it, and you will remember that. So, definitely, probably, maybe not. This is probably halfway between the tiers. It's better than the decent picks, but I don't think it's quite as good as the best picks. But still, nonetheless, a very good tank all round, and I think you can have some decent games in it. Now, on to the decent picks. So these are kind of the tanks that I think, yeah, they can still do well. I'd recommend these over other tanks that aren't in this video. However, I would recommend if you have any of the tanks that have already been mentioned, I would probably recommend playing those. First things first, light tanks, and all of them. All of the rest of the light tanks that I haven't mentioned yet. So that is the Panzerwagen, the Sheridan, the WZ-1321, and the Manticore. Now, the reason I'm giving them all into this pick is because a light tank played well is good. A light tank played well, you can do very well in the game, and I'm not gonna recommend one or the other of these light tanks. They're probably not as good as the light tanks that I've mentioned before. It's the EBR, the T100, or the 13105. But I would say these are probably all very, very capable of being played well in situations. The Manticore, for example, if you get an open map, lovely. You've got the camo rating, you can just sit there and just spot everything. Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, kind of similar situation to the Manticore. The Sheridan, you can either play as kind of a medium-light hybrid, or you can play with the Howitzer and just play as counter light tank. WZ 1321, kind of just a good all-rounder, kind of again played as that medium light tank hybrid role. You can play all of them well. If they're played well, they are good for you. However, if you're not a very good light tank player, I would say put every single light tank in this that I've listed so far, with the exception maybe the EBR. Don't even consider it in this video. Play something else. You need to be decent at playing light tanks to play light tanks in ranked, because otherwise you're just going to get absolutely farmed, and you're not going to have fun. Now, rest of the decent picks. So for the medium tanks, E50M. I've only just got this thing. I haven't really played it, but obviously it can snipe. It's got half decent armor, so either of the two metas, you're pretty well covered. The E50M isn't a very underrated tank. I think it can do very, very well. And yeah, pretty much. Next one, T62A. The 140's long lost brother. It's a good tank. Like, oh, I'm going to do this while I remember. It's a good tank. Like, people just don't play it because the 140 is better, the 907 is better. But you can still have good games in it. So if you have this thing, don't have the 140 or anything like that, play it. It's good, it works. The only issue you're going to struggle is it's less flexible than the 140 because it hasn't got the gun depression. But other than that, definitely a decent pick. Along those lines, 121. If you've got a 430, play the 430. It's a 121 that's better. However, the 121, I've only just got this tank, but I actually really quite like it. The gun is a lot more accurate than I thought it was. The DPM is very nice. The armor is half decent, and the mobility is pretty good. This tank surprised me, and this is one of, I think, a tank that is very, very underrated in World of Tanks. The 121. 100% decent pick. If you've got it, know roughly how to play it. It's a very good tank to play. And finally, for decent picks for the medium tanks, UDES 1516. Again, gun depression. Gun depression rules all when it comes to flexibility. Any map, you can use that gun depression. You can use your turret armor. Decent DPM on the gun. 440 alpha. Very, very nice. You may struggle some more on some city maps, stuff like that. But all in all, I think it's a decent pick. I still think you can do quite well. Moving on. Heavy tanks. Decent picks for the heavy tanks. 705A. This is going to be more the case if it, again, goes into kind of that HE firing meta. 152mm gun on a fully turreted platform with decent armor. Good at side scraping, obviously. This is definitely going to be a thing. The reason I haven't put it higher up is because the DPM is so poor when it comes to, if you're going to fire AP out of it, probably the 60 TP is better because you're doing 750 alpha per shot rather than the 650. And yeah, but it's still a decent pick. It's still definitely something that played right. You can just, or in most games, you can just go to a corner, side scrape it, try and trade as best you can. And more than likely, you're going to have a half decent game at the very least. Next decent pick, IS-4. It's been buffed recently. I haven't really played it since it's been buffed. I've got a shite crew in it. But I still think its survivability, its side-scraping ability, you can trade, try and get people to bounce off your side and then return with 440. I think it's a decent tank. I think it's probably towards the lower end of my decent picks. I'd almost put it in the awful picks. But I think it deserves a mention. You can definitely play it well. It's something that, again, I think is underrated because you've got 160mm of side armor. So you can angle like this, side scrape, and just hope people don't go through. I think it will be lessened if everybody is firing APCR because they can go through. APCR heat, sorry, because they can go through here. But I think the IS-4 can do half decently. Next pick is the 5. Again, this is a very good tank within itself. However, if you have a Super Conqueror, play the Super Conqueror. But all in all, this tank is actually probably towards the upper end of this category. Probably halfway between decent picks and best picks. The reason I've put it in decent picks is because the Super Conqueror is in best picks. Simple as that. If you have an E5, play it. It's very, very good. Very good tank all round. Gun's good. Armor's decent. Mobility's decent. What more do you want? Very good. Next one. Sticking with America. 57 heavy. It can work. You can do 1600 damage to people. Fall back. Let them push around the corner. Do another 1600 damage to someone. Boom. You've had a 3.2k damage game. You're looking decent. DPM. Amazing. Ability to fire. Amazing. The reason it's all the way down here. Armor. Not really that good. You can't. There's very few situations in the 57 heavy where you can get your full clip off without taking 2 or 3 shots, especially in ranked where everybody's quite bunched together. If someone sees a 57 heavy come around the corner, they're going to shoot you. That's all I'm saying. They are going to shoot you. Similar, 50B, not quite as good as the 57 heavy if it's a more of a brawly meta. However, if it's more of a sniping meta, 50B is obviously a lot better when it comes to the fact that it's got good accuracy, good aim time, the mobility is nice. 50B, I think, can do well in most situations if you know how to play it. I'm not really the best 50B player, but you can definitely, because you can move around the map and everything, you can get into good positions to make this thing work. It's good, obviously, if you need to fall back, if your team's losing, fall back, put in another 1600 damage, maybe try and reload and get another 1600 off them. Same situation as the 50B. And then my final pick for decent picks, 5A. I would recommend, you know, play the 277 over the 5A. However, the 5A is still a good tank. It's fallen out of favour with a lot of people, but it's still a good tank. 7 degrees of gun depression, really good rate of fire, really good heat rounds. Your issues is it's got next to no armour. It's got obviously the cupolas if it's hold down meta. Still a quick tank, but it's again it's a good all-round tank. It's just fallen out of favour with a lot of people. It's not terrible if you have it. You play it. It can be played very well. That's all I'm saying. And last but not least, let's move on to the tank destroyers. We've gone for first pick Foch B. Kind of similar situation to the 50B. However, a bit more inflexible because you don't have the turret. But if it's in the right place at the right time, a lot more deadly because you've got those 2 extra shells. It's a tank that, like I said, get it into the right situation. You can do a load. Similar-ish to the Bat Chat in the fact that if you really, really, really want to just basically YOLO in, put in 2,400 damage and then die, you can do that. If you're struggling to get to 1,500 damage in the Foch B, you're doing something wrong because you should be doing at least 2k damage a game just because you can go in, put a clip in, and then die. So it's a decent pick. I think it can work well. If it's quite a snipey meta, I think it can work quite well because it's decent accuracy and you can do a lot of damage from range. Next pick for the tank destroyers, decent pick, 4005. Not going to explain it. If it's the HE meta, it's king when it comes to HE rounds. It can do the most damage with a single HE round out of anything in the game. Obviously, the reason it's all the way down here and not all the way up the top, armor. As soon as you poke out in this thing, people are going to go, oh, there's a 4005 there. And like I said, if it is an HE meta, oh, you're going to suffer in this thing. You've got to try and hope that you can figure out that everybody else has fired and put your shell in. And then back the hell off, because if not, there are going to be rounds flying your way. It's tricky to play in ranked, I feel, but played right can still be played pretty well. And there will definitely be a lot of 4005s around. Next, where is it? I've lost it. There it is, 2684. You can bully people, get up in their faces. If it's quite a brawly meta, this tank will be quite good. If it's a sniping meta, this tank will be shite because it cannot snipe. Kind of fallen out of favour since it's had the armour nerfs, but still can be decent. Get it up in people's faces. It's a half decent tank. And then last but not least, the Object 268. Decent pick. I would pick it if you want to play a like 750 alpha tank destroyer, or kind of more like this. So you know, over the 113, over the Badger. I would say 268. I would even say of the Jaeger as well, just because it's got a better rate of fire. Yes, I know the Jaeger's got the 420 heat pen, but you have got to remember this thing's got 395 heat pen. It's definitely no slouch when it comes to that. Rate of fire, really good. Accuracy, really good. Armor, meh, not good, but it has some. So if people are firing HE at you, at least they're not going to pen you. But all in all, in my opinion, a very underrated tank. And yeah, you could pass a mention to the Jaeger. I would say it's probably not trash tier, but I'm not going to put it quite in decent picks just because of how slow it is and how much premium is going to be flying around. I don't think it's going to be that great. And yeah, that is my recommended ranked picks for the ranked season in 2021. If you have any questions, like I said before, guys, make sure you let me know in the comments. If you're asking why certain tanks haven't been picked, if you ask why tanks are so high up, I've usually got a half-decent answer for anything. Even if I haven't got a decent answer, I might just go, oh yeah, that's a very good point. I was wrong. But yeah, make sure, discuss with me things in the comments. I really don't mind. I will try and reply to as many comments as I can. Hopefully, this has helped you out, guys, when it comes to what tanks to play in ranked, what tanks I think are good, everything like that. This can kind of be, as well, just a general tier 10 guide, what I think are the best tanks to play. But more specifically, definitely for ranked. And hopefully this video ages well, and you can use this if you're watching this at the next ranked season, maybe towards the end of 2021 into 2022. But I'll probably do a refresher when it comes to another ranked season in, like, you know, however long that may be. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed, guys. Make sure you give the video a like if you've enjoyed or found it helpful in any way. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you see. I have loads of other videos. They're not all just like this. And other than that, make sure notifications are turned on so you know when I upload. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And I'll see you next time.